What is up, everyone? I am Jordan, or JKE390, and I'm a little under the weather, but today I'm going to be talking about how to play Secret Hitler. If you haven't heard of this game, it is a game of liberals versus fascists, one of the fascists being Hitler himself, and the liberals have no idea who is on whose side, whereas the fascists and Hitler know exactly who is on whose side. The liberals win by enacting 5 liberal policies, which I'll explain later. They can also win by killing Hitler. The fascists win by enacting 6 fascist policies, or if Hitler's elected chancellor after 3 fascist policies have been enacted. So there are 2 reasons I'm making this video. One, to show people that are curious how to play, and second, because I want to record this with some of our friends, and I'm making this as a way to show them how to play. So the first thing I'm going to do is going to bring this down, depending on how many players you have. As you can see here, this is the 9 to 10 player variant. I'm going to go ahead and bring it down to the 5 to 6 player variant, which is this card right here, which I will explain when we get to it. So here is everything that we should need. We have the box that has the 5 envelopes for each character. So I'm actually going to pass those out as, you know, pretend like these are people. I'm playing in the DM's view, so I actually get to see all of the hidden content. Now that I have all 5 envelopes passed out to the players, I'm going to take the policy cards, which are these. There are 11 fascist and 6 liberal policy cards, and that's all there's going to be throughout the entire game, believe it or not. So first, we're going to put both piles together, flip them, put them back in the pile, and rotate. This area right here is just for discarding once you're done. These just reset after you run out. And these cards right here are to signify whenever you find out who isn't Hitler. These are bullets for if you shoot someone, you know they're dead. This will be the president and the chancellor. This gives the instructions for the president and chancellor if they're confused on what they need to do. Keep it on the screen a little bit for somebody wants to pause and look at it. And the chancellor. Beyond that, it just lets people know that they were the previously elected, and this is the card to symbolize who actually is the current chancellor and president. I've now passed out all the cards. We have a liberal, Hitler, who is in fact a fascist, a liberal, and the other fascist. There's only one extra fascist whenever you play 3 or 5 player games. There's 1 plus Hitler for 5 player and 6 player, and then 2 plus Hitler for 7 and 8, and 3 fascists plus Hitler for 9 and 10. The number of liberals also increases. There are 3 for 5 players. For 6 players, there's 4 liberals. For 7 players, there's 4 liberals. For 8 players, there's 5 liberals. 9 players, 5 liberals. And for 10 players, there are 6 liberals. Now that everything is set up, you can actually begin the game. And there's 2 ways you can go about doing the narration. Either read it yourself, or you can go to, and I've got the rulebook open here to help me, go to secrethitler.com/app, which is the companion app, which will let it narrate all of the directions for you. But regardless, they have all the things you need to read in the rulebook. So you start out by saying, everybody close your eyes. If you're playing in person, obviously that's what you do. If you're playing the way that we all would have to play it online, because we're all in different parts of the world, you hit B, which blindfolds you. But we're not going to do that right now. So while everybody else is blindfolded, then it's fascists and Hitler, open your eyes and acknowledge one another. So, you know, you open your eyes, make sure everybody looks at each other, give it a good pause, then everyone close your eyes. Now everyone's eyes are closed again. So now it's safe for everyone to open their eyes, and then it actually includes in the rules to say if anyone is confused or something went wrong, please tell the group now. So now the game begins with the election process. The election process starts out with who is your original president going to be, which I guess you could use this dice for right here. Or you could use, you know, whoever's the oldest, whoever's the youngest, whoever was the first to, I don't know, who used the bathroom least today, whatever you want to do, and determine who is going to be the president. We'll say that for the sake of it, this person gets to be the president. So the role of the president in this initially is to nominate a chancellor. So we'll say that they nominate this person. It'd be another liberal, but there'd be no way they would actually realize this. Now the one rule for chancellor is it can't be the previous president or previous chancellor. So for example, after the election process, if these guys both win to be the president and chancellor, next turn they can't be the chancellor. The president always just moves one to the left clockwise, which I guess left symbolizes clockwise unless you're up here, but it always moves one clockwise. Now that we have our potential candidates for who will be the president and chancellor, it's time for everybody to vote, including the potential president and chancellor. So here's where these cards come in, the 9 and Ya card. So everybody at once throws in their card, yes for if they want, 9 if they don't want. And obviously people like Hitler and the fascist will realize that these two must both be liberals, you know, because that they know who each other is, so they'd know who all the liberals are. The liberals, however, don't know, so it's always a gamble for a liberal regardless, unless you really, truly figure something out. So, say everybody votes, and, a majority is yes, then it's fine. We find out who the new people are. But if a majority votes no, or if there's a tie, which of course in 5 players is impossible, but if you play 6 players and there's a tie, then they miss their chance. This moves over 1, and this person now, who's Hitler, gets to pick a potential chancellor. And they could, again, pick anybody depending on how they want to do this. But because they failed to vote, this moves up 1. Now, naturally, if it does it one more time, that's fine. But if it goes one more fail, so it'd make it here and then here, that means that the area falls into anarchy. It goes into chaos. So the first policy that can be drawn is drawn. So we're going to rotate it real quick again. Now, because there's only 6 liberal policies, there's a much greater chance of a fascist policy being pulled. So you don't want this to happen. So there would be the first fascist card already. So we'll say that happened. This person ended up being the president. And actually, I guess they would go all the way around. This person became president, and they'll just nominate the same person, because why not? Everybody finally votes yes. Everything is decided. And because it was finally voted yes, this gets to reset. It automatically restarts once you get your election process done. Now we're in the legislative portion of the game, which means that the president must draw 3 cards. And without saying anything, we'll first look at them. So, actually, I'm going to worry about putting them over there. But so here's what the president would have just drawn. Hopefully it's not 3 fascist cards, because then it becomes a little bit more challenging to describe. Perfect. Alright. So as a liberal, they obviously want more liberal cards to be drawn. So now after the president draws, they have to discard 1 without saying what it is, and keep 2 of them. So naturally, as a liberal, you probably want to get rid of the fascist card. They can keep it if they really want to, but generally, get rid of it. Now these 2 liberal cards would go to the chancellor. The chancellor, again, without saying anything, looks over both of these cards and decides which one to enact. Now, because they're both liberal, even if they were a fascist, they wouldn't have a choice. It would have to be a liberal card. But they, once again, discard 1 without question, and they enact that policy. So this would be 1 for liberals. So now we're kind of even. Now the game, once there gets to be 3 fascist cards on here, I don't know if it actually mentions it here. No. Okay, so that's just the thing that happens. If the fascists get 3 cards, as I mentioned earlier, and Hitler becomes the chancellor after that, the fascists automatically win because Hitler rises to power. From here, it goes to the next turn. So the card is passed here, and this person gets to pick the next chancellor. Now, once again, to reiterate, the chancellor cannot be the previous president or the previous chancellor, who, of course, are these guys. So they'd be like, okay, I vote for you. Now, of course, they put a fascist in power as chancellor. If everybody votes yes, that's now the deal. So we'll go ahead and draw 3 more cards. Alright, so that's 3 fascist cards. Now, unfortunately for this liberal, regardless what they do, they have to give up 2 fascist cards. So now, this chancellor actually has another little point they can make. So taking these fascist cards, they have to play 1 and discard 1, obviously secretly. Now, of course, everybody will be like, oh god, you enacted a fascist card, that, you're a fascist. And they'll be like, no, I had 2 fascist cards. Maybe this person over here is the fascist. And of course, start pointing blame towards the liberal. Of course, that's just basic strategy of the game, so it's nothing you have to do or anything, but it changes things to, lie. That's kind of the point of this game, I guess, is if you're fascist, use trickery and deceit. And if you're Hitler, befriend the liberals so that they'll eventually elect you chancellor. So we'll go ahead and say that we get to the point where we get to the executive actions. So we'd get 1 more fascist card, which I'm sure there's bound to be. There we go. So this one right here says, the president examines the top 3 cards. So the way that it's actually described word for word in the rulebook is that the president secretly looks at the top 3 tiles in the policy deck, and then returns them to the top of the deck without changing the order. So the president will now know what the next 3 are going to be. So if the next president lies, they'll be aware of this. Of course, from here, the president has to kill a player, which means they just have to pick someone to kill. Here they must, and the veto is unlocked. So I'm going to go ahead and read what it says about execution. The president executes one player at the table by saying, "I formally execute," and then the player's name. If that player is Hitler, the game ends in a liberal victory. If the executed player is not Hitler, the table should not learn if they were a fascist or a liberal. So, for example, say I shot, like, I guess this person, who's the president? This person shot this fascist. Then they would be like, "I'm dead. Are you Hitler?" "No, I'm not Hitler." Okay, that's all they know. They don't get to know anything else about it. That's it. If they shoot, the liberal, you don't say anything. If you shoot Hitler, game's done. You can't lie about that one. From there it says players must try to work out for themselves the new table balance. Executed players are removed from the game and must not speak, vote, or run for office. There's actually one other president policy that I guess the 3-Player Act doesn't have, but it's investigate loyalty, which is the president chooses a player to investigate. Investigated players should hand their party membership card, not their secret roll card, to the president, who checks the player. So this person being the president, if they got it, it's just a little, like I said, magnifying glass is what it looks like. So if they ask this liberal, "What are you? Blah, 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 I need to know," then they would hand them this card. Obviously, you don't want anybody to see it, so you'd flip it, you'd pass it over, they'd take a little glance at it and say, okay, that person, they'd know now that this person's a liberal, and pass it back. If they got Hitler, they don't get the Hitler card, they get this. So they can look and be like, oh, that person's a fascist, I don't know which one, it could be Hitler, or it could be the other fascist. So it's still not, if they got this person, they'll get the exact same information, so it's not 100% on who Hitler is still. The veto power is actually its own individual thing, and I'm going to read it straight from the book again. So it says, the veto power is a special rule that comes into effect after 5 fascist policies have been enacted, which is, of course, here, the 5th policy. For all legislative sessions after the 5th fascist policy is enacted, the executive branch gains a permanent new ability to discard all 3 policy tiles if both the chancellor and president agree. So that goes for anybody, regardless if they're fascist, liberal, Hitler, anything. The president draws 3 policy tiles, discards 1, and passes the remaining 2 to the chancellor as usual. Then the chancellor may, instead of enacting either policy, say, "I wish to veto this agenda." If the president consents by saying, "I agree to this veto," both policies are discarded and the president place card passes. As per usual, it moves to the left, and if the president does not consent, the chancellor must enact a policy as normal. So from there, the game continues. Each use of the veto power represents an inactive government and advances the election tracker by 1. So once again, we go back down to this little thing and move it over 1. Now then, believe it or not, that's actually all the rules to the game. So from here, we'll actually just play this out like it could continue. Obviously, there's not 3 of these cards, but that's okay. We're just gonna keep it out like that. Their turn would be done. They'd move it to Hitler. Hitler could pick... Well, they can't pick him to be the chancellor because that was already done. Not sure where there's 3 cards up there, but that's okay. I think I must have accidentally clicked that. Let's say that they elected... Now that this card has been passed to the next new person, this person is now able to be nominated again. So everybody votes if they agree with this party, which right now there'd be no reason not to because they have no idea who anybody is. So the president would now draw 3 cards. So obviously Hitler would probably want to get rid of this, but it is the beginning of the game, so it doesn't actually hurt to give them a couple liberal cards because, you want to play it out like you're not Hitler. You don't want anybody to suspect you other than your fellow fascists. You want to be able to get chancellor the second that there's 3 cards up here. But say that's not the case. Say you want to just be like, I'm going to get rid of this. Pass it on to the chancellor. And now the chancellor has no choice but to pick a fascist card. To which you can, either blame on them, or if they call you out, you could just, because you could either say, oh, I gave them a liberal and a fascist card, they chose the fascist. Or you can be honest and be like, oh yeah, there were 3 fascist cards. Honest in terms of this person got 2 fascists. Obviously you lied about the 3rd. But trying to play it off like there was nothing I could do to stop it, and there was nothing they could do to stop it after the turn is done. You don't want to do it during the voting, or during the passing. You're not allowed to do that. You have to wait until after everything is enacted. So once again, the presidential power would move over one. This person would then be able to pick anybody. We'll just say you. Draw 3 more cards. So there we go, 3 liberal cards. So regardless what happens, obviously you don't want them to know what that is. The other person is going to have to enact a liberal card regardless of what they are. Now because they're liberal, that's probably should be fine by them. So there we go. Also that moves back. And the game continues on this way until either 5 liberal policies are enacted, or of course Hitler dies, which is right here if you get shot. 6 fascist policies are enacted, or if you get 3 fascist policies up to here, and Hitler is voted in as Chancellor. And that is actually how you play Secret Hitler. So hopefully you learned something. Hopefully I didn't ramble too much. Hopefully it sort of almost made a little bit of sense. I'm going to end this video here, and until next time everyone, later.